Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Isn't it nice to be popular, to be that go-to person for help? You know, you're the person that everybody turns to when they need some advice, some guidance, and quite often just for a chat. How about being seen as the go-to person for problems? You know, you can solve them problems. You can do the more complex pieces of work. This is awesome. You know, it's a really good place to be in, isn't it? Until it's not. What you find, everybody, well, they're constantly interrupting you, aren't they? You're the person always being assigned that tricky work, the more complex pieces. And the problem is that's stopping you from getting on with the day-to-day work that you're meant to be doing. And yes, I know, I've been there, I've lived it. You spend all your day dealing with other people's work, and you don't seem to get anywhere with yours. Well, what can you do? Can you ignore the people that come up to you just to have a chat? If you do, you're likely to be labelled as being rude. What about that person? They're in the middle of a crisis. They desperately need someone to talk to. Can you say no to helping someone who's in a crisis? Again, the downside of that, you could end up being labelled as someone who just isn't a team player. You need to find a way to handle all these sorts of things. Now, in a previous video, I've given you some very easy to achieve tips. Things like go and work in a quiet room, put a do not disturb sign up, work from home if possible, putting on headphones, but they don't actually get plugged into anything. People just assume you're listening to music, so they don't disturb you. You know, these are all simple ideas, but sometimes, well, they just don't work. People, they will still come up, they will still interrupt you. Well, here's some additional tips, additional strategies you can try. The first one, ask them very politely to come back later. What we're doing here, we're redirecting them. We're getting them away from disturbing us in the here and now when we're busy doing something. What we're doing is we're saying to them, come back during my tea break. Give them an idea when that tea break will be. So you might say, look, I'm in the middle of this. I'm going to go and have a drink in about half an hour. Why don't we catch up then? If it's something big, can you say to them, make an appointment. Get a booking into your calendar. The way I see calendars, if there's a booking there, if you've accepted it, that's a commitment to meet and talk with that person. Just because someone comes up to you does not mean you need to stop what you're doing and start talking to them. A simple, I'm a bit tied up at the moment. Can we chat in half an hour? That is often enough. And to be honest, 9 times out of 10, after half an hour, they've found an alternate solution. They've found someone else to chat to. They no longer need to take up your time. The next strategy, somebody who's always coming up to have some small talk. You know, we all know these people. We all have them. They come and ask you how your weekend was, and then that evolves into a half-hour conversation. Really impacts your productivity, doesn't it? With these, it's important that you speak to them firmly but politely. Let them know you're busy. Let them know if it's a work-related question, you're more than happy to answer them. Anything else, tell them you'll talk to them at tea break or at lunch. You're not using that previous strategy as well. If they persist, and I've known people that do this, they don't take these social hints quite well. I know it's going to sound really rude. Turn away from them and get back to doing the work. Essentially, ignore them. What you need to remember with this, yes, it's rude, but your time is as precious as theirs. How you use your time is down to you. But in all this, just make sure you're polite, but also make sure you're consistent and you stick to your statements. If you tell them, no, I can't talk now, and they carry on chatting and you chat back, well, you just send in a mixed message, aren't you? What you're essentially saying is, I'm going to say no, but I don't care. I'm still going to talk to you. My next strategy, this is for when people, they come to you for advice. And this, it's something that I love. I really enjoy talking to people and helping them out, helping to get through issues and problems. I've got to be honest, it's one of the reasons I get out of bed in the morning. And I know, what a sad statement to make. But you've got to be careful. If you're always helping people, you could end up making them lazy. They like to think to themselves, well, why should I do it? I can just go and ask Gary, he'll do it for me. This was a hard lesson that I had to learn early in my career. It was essentially quite a big mindset change. I would change how I would let people ask me for help. I used to get people, they would come up and say, Gary, I've got this problem. What I started to do is to turn them away. I told them to go back and think about it. And then once I've thought about it, come back to me and describe the opportunity that's been opened up. Not the problem, not the issue, the opportunity. And then also come with some potential solutions to help move it forward. As soon as I did this, I found that half the people that had been coming up to me, they stopped. I'd sent them away to think about the problem. I'd helped them to turn it from something negative, a problem, into something positive, the opportunity and solution. By doing that, it made them think, and they came up with the way forward by themselves. They no longer needed my input. It built up their skills, it built up their self-confidence, so that they didn't need me as that safety net anymore. For those that came back, what I would then do is ask them to talk me through the opportunity and the solution. Again, this is all aimed at helping them to see the way forward, not for me to give it to them. By getting them to talk through the solution, it slowed them down, it made them think. By me asking questions which aimed at clarifying their thinking, again, helped them to see that path forward. And as time went on, I would find that they would start talking to other team members first before they would come to me. Big win there. We're spreading that knowledge, we're spreading that experience through the whole team, as well as reducing the burden on my time. Again, this step was all about increasing their knowledge, their skills, and their self-confidence. And then for those few opportunities that couldn't be solved, this is where I'd need to get more hands-on. Now, I'm not saying here I did the work. I didn't. What I did is I would ask questions. I would help them to identify actions, and then the team member went away and they performed those actions. What I did, I was there as the sounding board. I was there as the coordinating force. I would fetch them together, point them in the right direction, and then let them go off and solve the issue themselves. They're all about, as I've said repeatedly, building knowledge, skills, self-confidence. And it worked so well. It was also quick. What I found is once I started to use these techniques, the team very quickly adapted, and I saw a noticeable change within a week. Yeah, that fast. The final strategy we're going to talk about, this is the tricky one. Your boss comes up to you and asks you to do something. I mean, by your boss, it could be a customer if you're self-employed. Somebody asks you to do something. Someone in authority, someone you're relying on. Can you say no? Quite often, you can, and people don't realise that. The key, make sure you think about it before you say no. Don't just give that knee-jerk reaction. Don't just say no. Think about it. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, and this is still ongoing. One of the biggest things that I struggle with, I don't say no often enough. But it's important that I do so. So now, every time I get a request, I try to make sure that I think about it. I'm deliberate. And unless it's something that I desperately need to have done myself, I try to say no. When you say no, make sure you're being careful with it. If it's something that's outside your skill set, explain to your boss, explain to the customer that you can't do it because you don't have the relevant skills, the relevant knowledge. Now, they may respond to you and say, yeah, I know that, but why I'm asking you to do this piece of work is to help you to gain that knowledge, help you to gain and solidify those skills. So essentially, it's a training activity for you. If this happens, the next question out of your mouth should be, okay, What are you going to do to help and support me, to provide me the guidance, the tools, the knowledge that I need? You put the onus back on them to make sure they're making themselves available or telling you where you can go, who you can go to for support. What happens if they come to you and you're already overloaded? Again, you can say to them no. Most of the time, what you need to do is just explain that you're overloaded and that you need their help and input on what you should stop doing. So you're saying to them, I'm sorry, I'd love to do this, but I've got all these other projects. List off the projects, list off any relevant actions, and then say to them, if I'm to take this new piece of work on, which of these do you want me to stop working on? Again, you're putting the onus on your boss. It could be they've got absolutely no idea how overloaded you are. It could be there's lower priority work which they're happy for you to either delay or just stop doing. Make sure you clarify what your workload is and then talk with your boss, talk with the person asking you to do something and get them to help you decide what can be delayed, what can be stopped. As part of this, there's a very important action you should be taking, and you should be doing this all the time. You should be saying to yourself, can I delegate this? Now, a lot of the time, a lot of things that we do, we don't actually need to. We can delegate to other people. Now, these, quite often, they can be fairly small things, but they can also be some of the larger ones, which they really suck up your time. And they might not necessarily need you to actually do it. An example really to look at this. With the videos that I produce, I've got a load of steps in that production timeline. I love writing the scripts. I enjoy doing that. But I don't necessarily need to do the research to produce a script. I can delegate that research. I can get someone to go out and find most of the information for me and then give me a synopsis. And that's what I can then use to start writing the script and then dig a bit deeper in just the areas that I need to clarify for that script. Now, I need to do the recording. It's me on the camera. I've got no option. I have to do that. But the editing, well, that's something I don't need to do. So again, it's actually something I enjoy doing, but I don't need to do it. It's something that I can very easily delegate to someone else. So if we look at an average 10 to 15 minute video, I would spend 3 to 4 hours doing the research, 1 hour doing the scripting, 45 minutes recording, then 3 hours editing. So that's a total of about 8 hours work for a small video. The actual time I really need to be involved is 2 hours. And if I was to go to the full extreme, I don't really need to do a lot of the scripting, so I could save even more time. Even with doing that scripting, I'm getting 6 hours back by delegating that research, by delegating the editing. We also, though, when delegating, we need to be realistic. Yes, I can delegate that 6 hours. Where am I going to get the money to pay for it? People's time costs money. And sometimes it's just not financially worth it for us to delegate that. Again, let's look at these videos. I make very little off the videos. It's not financially viable for me to pay someone to do that research or the editing. What I then do is I look at it and I actually fit that around the rest of my life. So with the research, I'll end up doing maybe 30-minute chunks over a number of days. I might spend part of my lunchtime just doing a bit of research, making notes. The editing, well, I've got to be honest, a lot of my editing I do whilst I'm watching TV. I find that television, it doesn't really need 100% of my concentration. I'm only really glancing at it half the time. So I use that time and I do my editing. So I'm doing two things in parallel. But the whole point of this really, use delegation where necessary. So to summarise, it's important to do everything we can to reduce and remove interruptions. Ask people that interrupt you to speak to you at a later time. Tell them you're in the middle of doing something, you're busy, but you'll talk to them later. Be firm, but be polite and consistent. If you ask them to come back, don't start talking to them straight away. Ask people to describe opportunities and solutions to you, not the problems. Make them think. Make them start to do the work themselves. And a lot of the time, they'll come up with a solution. They won't need your input. Get people to talk through things. Get them to talk through the opportunities and talk through the solutions. Slow down their thinking and help them to see a way forward. For those that can't be solved, work together. Identify actions and activities that can be undertaken. Let them go away and do them, and you just coordinate. You're no longer doing that work. Start to say no more often. If you don't have the skills and the knowledge, say so. Ask for help, ask for guidance. If you don't have the time, ask which actions and projects can be delayed or stopped. Delegate where possible to make more effective use of your time, your skills, and then also develop that skill in the rest of the team by delegating the work to them. Always remember, your time is precious. Something you need to remind other people about. They come up to you expecting you to drop everything. Say no, I'm busy, I can't do this. Make sure when you're doing this that you're firm, you're polite, but you're also reasonable. Manage your actions, manage people's expectations, and it will enable you to deliver the results you deserve. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Do you struggle with saying no? Do you struggle with people coming up to you? What strategies do you use? Please drop a comment down below. Let's kickstart the conversation. Please hit the thumbs up button every time you like, every time you comment. Just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.